All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I will kick things over to Jeff Schwartz.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's awesome to see so many participants here. I think we had over 150 plus registrants, and we already have 50 folks on here. So it's really exciting to see the interest in this NOFA. For those of you that don't know me, I am Jeff Schwartz. I run the Office of Economic Development for the city and have an amazing team working every day to make our city's economy more vibrant and equitable. You can see here Courtney Stuckwish-Wong, Tracy Jackson, Andrew Bagnato, and others. So a lot of the amazing work that is represented not only in the PowerPoint today, but also in the NOFA itself is from this amazing team. I'm here primarily to be the hype man. We'll get into the meat of things in a few minutes. But we're tremendously excited about this opportunity, which, to make sure you all are in the right session here. It's with respect to the notice of funding availability for economic mobility in motion. This is a pot of funds that the city set aside out of its ARPA allocation. So these are precious one-time dollars that the city has to program. And it's really exciting to see the city thinking holistically about getting to root cause issues in New Orleans and really tackling not only our health and public safety challenges and opportunities in the city, but also tying them to economic opportunity and working with populations that don't always see the level of investment that we're talking about here. So I'm incredibly excited about this work that we're all going to be doing together. Really excited. Can't wait to see the ideas and proposals that you all are thinking about. And I think the last sort of high level comment that I'll offer is just that, I think when we think about economic mobility, as I think you'll see reflected in the NOFA for those of you that have looked at it, and as we'll talk about today, we're really thinking about it from a lot of different angles. And so we're excited to see proposals, hear your questions, and then ultimately see proposals that really reflect not only tried and true programs that have been established by many of the, I know, amazing organizations that are represented here, but also, outside the box thinking and new approaches to thinking about economic mobility and working with, populations that might be more of a quality over quantity, type of program. And so, we have no preconceived notions about, what exactly we're looking for. We have some of our best thinking and drawing on best practices nationally. But we're really excited to see what you all are thinking about and what types of proposals you're looking at presenting through this NOFA. So with that, I think we can probably start jumping through the slides. I think I can go through the agenda and then I'll turn the mic over to the rest of the team. So as I sort of high level was running through there, the agenda that we'll go through, we'll touch on the different program objectives, requirements, and eligibility. We'll talk a little bit about sort of the funding details, and then we will wrap up with a discussion about sort of the overall process, thinking about, not just the applicant selection, but also the award process and what it looks like for, what is a federally funded program ultimately, and some of the, key elements of having a successful award and program. And then, of course, ending with questions and answers. So yes, with that, I will turn the mic over to Courtney and the rest of the team to take us through this presentation. Thanks everyone for being here. Yeah, thanks, Courtney.
Yes, I think the Q&A is probably going to be the meat of today's discussion. So we won't take up too much of your time going over everything else. But as you're aware, we put out this notice of funding availability. It's on our website, nola.gov. /economic development. And as Jeff mentioned, we have about $5 million of American Rescue Plan Act funds that we're putting toward this. And we hope to support about 6 to 10 programs and reach over 2,000 individuals who would be participants in these programs. So I'm going to go over briefly the timeline. We released this NOFA on October 11th, and our application deadline is in about 3 weeks on November 21st. We will make announcements about awards in December. And then hopefully we will start these programs in Q1 or Q2 of next year. And then because these are American Rescue Plan Act funds, they do have to be spent by the end of 2026. So that is something that, you know, is kind of a federal requirement that we're being held to. So because of that, you know, we're looking at projects that are between 12 months and no longer than 36 months. As far as the minimum award amount, that is $250,000, and the maximum award amount is $1 million, and that's per awardee. Right. So just to go over a few of our objectives, the idea for this program was really generated from the health department. They do a lot of work on getting some feedback. Thank you. They do a lot of work around social determinants of health, and kind of this idea that there are a lot of things that affect somebody's health, including society, economy, you know, the things that are kind of going on in our community are affecting health. And so there's some research that they did on that. And this NOFA is coming out of that research. So the idea, or one of the objectives, is that we will actually make a real impact in the lives of individuals, making them more economically mobile, which in turn, as the research shows, will lead to greater well-being, reducing stress, food insecurity, housing insecurity, etc. So we will, the goal is to deploy all of these funds and to reach about 2,500 individuals over the project timeline. We also want to support existing programs, as well as kind of de-risk some innovative new programs. So if you have a program that you have been doing and you've seen success and you want to apply for funds, that would be great. If you have an idea for a program, maybe that you haven't done before, but you know, you might have some research or reasons to believe that your program would have the impacts that we want to see, we'd love to see those proposals as well. Some of the programs that or ideas for programs that we included in the NOFA, these are not, your ideas should not be limited to this, but these are just some of the ones that we came up with, include things like universal basic income, financial literacy, support in accessing tax credits and other safety net funding, home ownership or other asset building programs, credit counseling, workforce training that's connected to employment, re-entry or wraparound supportive services, entrepreneurship, and again, the list goes on. But we're, you know, excited to, one, hear about the work you're already doing, or two, hear about new and exciting things that you're thinking about. The fourth bullet point here is around evaluating the program to see what works. We will be setting aside a portion of the $5 million for evaluation because we want to really make sure we have a strong understanding of you know, the efficacy of these programs so that we can make decisions about what to support in the future. So evaluation is going to be an important aspect. And then lastly on here, we want to invest in our community-based organizations that are in New Orleans or that may decide to locate here. You know, there's so much good work going on that we get to learn about all the time. And, you know, as Jeff said, this is one-time money and we're excited to use it to build your capacity. All right, program requirements. So, you know, essentially this funding will be awarded to, you know, your organizations. And the mechanism to do that is going to be a contract with the city. And so that's not always an easy task. We anticipate that, you know, even once awards are made, it's going to take probably between 2 and 4 months to get agreements in place. And because these are federal funds, you know, there will be, you know, a lot of items that we'll have to add onto these, or just make sure that there's the understanding between our organizations, you know, including things like insurance. And then anytime you're working with the city of New Orleans, we have a form called the tax clearance form that just ensures that you're not delinquent on any taxes to the city before we can enter into an agreement. So those are a couple of things dealing with any contractual activities. I mentioned program evaluation. We are also kind of in tandem with this NOFA working on a RFP that will go out in the next couple of weeks for an evaluator for the program. And so we're hoping that once we make the awards, we'll have that evaluator who will, you know, work with us as we're doing our agreements, our formal agreements with the awardees. And we'll kind of at that time build in some of the requirements around the evaluation. And then federal compliance, because these are American Rescue Plan Act dollars, there are going to be some federal compliance requirements. And some of those are listed in the NOFA, so you can see Appendix E for more details on that in the NOFA. You know, we are all learning about these dollars as well, so it will be a learning experience. And with that, I will kick it over to my colleague, Tracy.
Thanks, Courtney. So here we will address the application selection process, where we'll cover minimum threshold requirements as well as the evaluation and selection committees. Proposed projects who fail to meet the minimum threshold eligibility requirements will be deemed ineligible and will not be subject for consideration. So these requirements are as followed. An implementation timeline no longer than 36 months, a reward request more than the minimum and less than the maximum allotted range, and proposals must be complete upon submittal. So no addendums will be accepted after the November 21st deadline has passed. And so off to the next category, which is the evaluation and selection committees, which will be comprised of city employees with expertise in these areas. Both committees will include members of our project team, who our director, Jeff Schwartz, introduced, and along with some skilled support staff from other departments. Applications will be reviewed by the evaluation committee and scored based on the factors set in the table shown below. The full scoring rubric is accessible in the Appendix B of the NOFA. Each proposal will undergo a preliminary eligibility assessment based upon the 4 screening categories reflecting both community and federal priorities. Those being general qualifications, experience and capacity, program and project approach, program and eligibility impact, as well as budget and financials. Supporting documentation for these proposals, when available and applicable, should be included in the application submission, and evaluations of the applications shall be within the sole judgment and discretion of the evaluation committee. So once the evaluation has been completed, the selection committee will then determine the awardees and the amounts of each award. And that concludes this slide. So as it So as it relates to program eligibility, eligible applicants must fall under, must fall into one of the following categories. Nonprofits with 501c3 tax exempt status, such as public charities or private foundations. We also have universities and schools, which are also eligible, as well as private organizations and other community-based organizations, which include health centers, FQHCs, or churches. Priority will be given to the organizations that have experience delivering these programs and services that improve mobility for LMI residents. Now, applicants considered ineligible under the NOFA will include organizations with federal, state, or city debt delinquency and or previously funded organizations that haven't met the audit requirements. Also, contractor principals possessing certain felonies within the preceding 5 years for examples, things such as embezzlement, theft of public funds, bribery, or falsification of destruction or public records. Also, non-compliance issues with regards to city funding commitments or unresolved compliance issues. And last but not least, individuals, of course, will not be eligible, although not eligible solely. These individuals may partner with eligible organizations for consideration. Thank you. So now onto the grant award process. So the Office of Economic Development will notify in writing applicants selected for funding within 30 days of the NOFA application, which is once again November 21st, 2023. All awards are subject to further contract negotiations based on availability of funds. Applicants selected for consideration may be required to submit additional project information for further review and clarity. Also, projects that are awarded until such time as the available funds are exhausted. There's an updated grant award process and timeline that may be found in Appendix A of the NOFA. And please note that the city reserves the right to change the timeline as needed. Lastly, the city also reserves the right to cancel in whole or in part this NOFA at any time and without notification. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time and attention. I'll now turn it over to our colleague, Andrew Bagnato, for Q&A.
Thank you, Tracy. Appreciate that. So we actually received a few questions ahead of this presentation, and I'm just going to go over these first before we open it up for our formal Q&A, if that's okay. Just because we think maybe that some of the other folks who haven't submitted beforehand may have the same questions. So we'll just start at the top. So the first question is, can we apply for funding if we're getting some funding for the same project from another city department? The answer is yes. Yes, you can. And also, my colleagues, Courtney, Jeff, Tracy, feel free to jump in at any point if there's any need to further elaborate on any of these questions. So the next one next question is, we have a project with a duration of longer than the Economic Mobility in Motion grant period. Can we still apply? So the answer to that is you can apply for funding for the portion of the project that will be complete before the end of the grant period. The next question we had was, do we need letters of support? The answer is no. Next question, if we have an SBA loan, does that disqualify us? So the answer to that is no. Federal or state or local debt is okay, as long as you're not delinquent on that debt. Next question, our organization has multiple programs that meet the requirements of this NOFA. Can we apply for funding for a suite of programs? Yes. So the answer is yes, as long as all the programs are described in your proposal and will be funded by the grant. So we will not grant more than $1 million per awardee, even across multiple programs. So the next question, our organization is not required to conduct an audit. Will we be penalized if we don't submit one? So the answer to that is no. If your organization does have a recent audit within the last 3 years, you can submit that, but you will not be penalized. And then the last question we have here is, can an organization that is an LLC apply? So the answer to that is yes. So both nonprofit and for-profit organizations can apply. So now I'm going to look at the chat here and see, and folks, feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we can go through these.
Andrew, I actually did get one more question just before
Sure.
we started today, so I will go ahead and read that one.
Great.
Here we go. So the question was, if there are multiple sources of funding for the project, should the organization submit a budget that has all of the sources of funding or just the funding from this program? And the answer is that a budget with the complete funding for the project, and as with identifying where the economic mobility and motion funds will be used. And if you already have identified other sources of funding, that would be helpful to see as well.
Great. Thank you, Courtney. Let's see here. So how does one submit the answers to the questions? This is a question from Kevin. How does one submit the answers to the questions? Digital application forms, Excel for the budget, question mark?
Yes. So on our website, we have included a Word document application packet. And we really do just want you to type into that Word document, and you can, either submit it as a Word document or save it as a PDF and submit that. And then, yes, we do want an Excel form for the budget. We have not provided a template, so use your best judgment on that. There is a part of the budget narrative that's in the Word document. The Word document application. And so make sure to write your narrative in that Word document application, as well as submit an Excel spreadsheet for the budget. And then, there are a couple of other things, like if the staff who will be working on this, you could include a PDF of the resumes for your staff. One PDF with all the resumes is preferable, but if you have to submit them separately, that's fine. As well as your other financial documents. So we're asking for a 990, your most recent financial documents or statement. And then if you do have an audit, a recent audit, then please submit that as well.
Great. Let's see. The next question I have here is the grant intended for financial programs, or can it be to improve communities?
That's a good question. I'll jump in there. So we're really looking for programs that improve the economic mobility of individuals. So in improving the mobility of several individuals, we could get to that kind of community impact, but we're going to be evaluating the impact on individuals.
Great. And this next question, will a grant award from this, no, I think it says NOLA, but I think you meant maybe NOFA. Will a grant award from this NOFA impact our eligibility for future city funding / RFPs? I believe maybe this question came in right before we got to that in the presentation, but in Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong with that. The answer is no, that won't affect.
Correct. The answer is no.
Great. Awesome. All right, so next question, what documents are not counted within the 20 pages? For example, budget, resumes of key staff, 990 form, etc.
That's a great question. So the only things that are considered within the 20 pages is the Word document application. That needs to be within the 20-page limit. The other forms that are listed, the budget, the resumes, 990, and any other forms would be separate from the 20 pages.
So the next question, our organization has, okay, maybe that's not a question. Our organization has 4 sites in NOLA.
If the question there is, you know, can we apply for funding across 4 sites? I would say if it's the same program, yes. And if it's, you know, meets all the other eligibility requirements. However, the maximum award will be $1 million per awardee. So we don't anticipate awarding multiple funds to the same organization.
Okay, yeah, and I think that looks like the follow-up question was, can we submit one proposal and combine the 4 locations all in one?
Yes.
That was the same, yes, so the answer is yes there, Tracy. Let's see, so are there any documents accepted in lieu of an audit?
So the Form 990 is a requirement of all organizations that are nonprofits, and as well as the most recent financial statements. So nothing is required in addition to that.
If an organization has a previously funded contract with a city that hasn't yet closed out, does that affect their eligibility for this program? And asking in relation to the ineligible applicants category.
Likely not. We will have multiple staff, you know, participating in our evaluation, as Tracy mentioned. And so I would think that the only thing that might disqualify you is that if somebody who's reviewing says, hey, I've worked with this organization before and they're not fulfilling X, Y, and Z. And so, you know, past performance, I think, could be a factor in the evaluation. But no, just participating or receiving funds will not disqualify you.
The next question, are you looking for a target number of participants to be served through a funded project? Well, I know that we have a target, you know, kind of overall. Was that 2,500 number, I believe, is the kind of target, you know, through all the programs, but I don't know that we're specifically trying to target like per organization.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I agree with that. I think we'll be looking for a mix, and I think that's one thing that, so there will be an evaluation committee that will score the applications based on the scoring rubric, and then there will be a selection committee that will make the decisions using the scores. They will, you know, they will kind of make the strategic decisions about, you know, who to fund and at what level. And so I imagine the selection committee is going to be the group that's looking at the overall number of individuals, and there may be some programs that are supporting fewer individuals, but maybe they have, you know, maybe the population is harder to reach or something like that, or more specific. So I think we'll be looking for a mix, but overall, yes, the goal is a couple thousand folks will be impacted.
And if I can, I think those are two, you know, great answers that give the guidance Ms. Baker was looking for. I would just add that as everyone has mentioned, I think we're looking for a mix of programs. We're looking for folks, not only, it's not just, I guess, a volume game, right? I think if there's programs that are going a little deeper with folks, but serving a fewer number of folks, but the impact is there. I think as long as there, is the narrative and application and budget to support that, I think that will still be very compelling. So I just wanted to emphasize that this isn't just, the more people you serve, or purporting to serve, the higher likelihood of success. I think we, as Andrew and Courtney and Tracy noted, we have a goal of at least 2,500 individuals served here. Maybe we end up a little bit lower than that. Maybe we end up with more. I think what we're looking for is the highest impact programs across a number of different criteria that we'll be evaluating against.
Right, looking here to our next question. So our organization is in New Orleans, but we serve people who live in both Orleans and other civil parishes. If the funding is restricted to participants from New Orleans, does the budget need to reflect a portion of staff time or other services that is proportionate to NOLA residents? For example, if a tutor aids students who live in Orleans versus Jefferson Parish.
Yes. Yes, it does. This funding is restricted to individuals from Orleans Parish. So we would want to see the breakdown that's specific to Orleans residents and the proportion of support within the program that will go to that.
Next question, confirming that there will be one evaluation group that the city will contract to evaluate all allocated funding under this grant, or do individual project/applications need to include funding for evaluation within our proposal?
So yes, I'm confirming what you said, Ashley, that there will be one evaluation group that the city will engage and the city will have a formal partnership with. It may be possible that we build in to our agreements with the awardees for the NOFA, some requirements around how they'll be required to engage with the city's evaluator, but it will be the city's evaluator. We're aware that, some nonprofits may have, evaluation, aspects that they already engage, and that's fine too, but it won't really replace what the city evaluator is going to do.
And speaking of the evaluation piece, the next question, what will be included in the evaluation? It would be helpful to know that in order to make sure our evaluator scope makes sense.
So to that, I would say there's no scope that you need to create for evaluation. We will, when the city engages our evaluator, that's one reason we're doing this in tandem, is that we will have that evaluator help us with the suite of programs. And the solicitation that we drafted for the evaluator, which should be going out any minute now, we kind of share that we don't know what the programs will be yet. It's my understanding that evaluation firms are used to dealing with all kinds of programs. And so, I'm confident that we will be able to work with them and to work with you on your specific program, on what the goals are. So, the requirements in this application for the NOFA are to, share what you think the impact will be on the individual participants in your program, both qualitative and quantitative impact. And I think that will, that's all that's required.
Great. So next question, for living wage requirements, do we need to confirm which staff and subcontractors would work with program participants? We are a rather large organization with staff and varied roles.
If we want to take that on, but so the city does have a living wage requirement that's based on a council ordinance. I believe the living wage was set several years ago at like $11.10 an hour. So it's not an extremely high bar. And at this point, you know, we're really relying on in organizations that we engage with to you know, make sure both their wages and their subcontractor wages meet that minimum level. So yes, you would have to confirm with staff and subcontractors that you do meet the living wage requirements.
Are site improvements permissible?
So I can't remember if this is in the list of eligible activities, but any kind of capital projects or, you know, improvements to physical buildings is not anticipated within this this NOFA. So that's not what we're looking to fund.
Let's see, an LLC / for-profit would not have a 990. So should that be submit 990 if applicable?
Yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes on that. Great. Okay, let's see. For the 20 pages, double / single space, question mark.
It could be single space.
Can these funds be used for operational expenses if the organization is already running programs?
I've talked a lot. Does anybody else want to take a shot at that one? I will say that, you know, we'll be taking a look at your budget. And so if you want to include some admin costs, overhead, I think that that makes sense. You know, we would just want to see that it's at an appropriate level and that the majority of the funding is going to this specific program or project. But, you know, a lot of us have worked in nonprofits and we understand that, you know, admin and overhead is a cost of, you know, of running any program. And so certainly you can use it for some of those funds.
Right, and then if the organization has not had an audit, but has other financial docs, can they submit those instead? I believe the answer to that question is yes, but you know, you can submit, you know, what you have as it relates to any kind of financial documents.
Yeah, and I think if you're a nonprofit, as Courtney said, I think, you know, a 990 or any, you know, compiled documents, you know, balance sheet and P&L or statement of financial position, you know, I think submit what you have. It's not obviously a requirement to have audited financials. And then I just Andrew, to keep it moving, I see
Oh, sure.
Ms. Douglas is on the organizational budget minimum. I think, you know, certainly we want to be able to invest in organizations and programs that can scale and help these funds be transformative, not only for the individuals served, community members served, but also for your organizations. I think certainly as we evaluate capacity, we'll take into account the organization's track record of success and other factors, not just what your current organizational budget size is. You know, that being said, if your organization has a budget of, you know, $50,000 or $100,000 a year, and you're asking for $1 million for a program, I think, you know, we would be looking to have you demonstrate in your application how you will grow in order to be able to, you know, accommodate the proposed program that you're submitting to the NOFA for. But I think the short answer is there's no minimum on the organizational budget or maximum for that matter. So certainly we've set the parameters on the proposal sizes between $250,000 and $1 million. But yeah, hopefully that sheds some light on that.
Great, thank you, Jeff. Let's see. Is the expectation, I think we might have answered this one, but is the expectation for 2,500 plus participants to be reached on a per program applicant basis or for the entire NOFA funding pool? So it would be the latter. So we're looking to kind of hit that mark with the entire, you know, the entirety of the NOFA, you know, spread out across all awardees and all programs. So let's see, does expected launch of program date of Q1 2024 include time to build and launch a technology platform, or do you want people immediately in a program in Q1?
So I would say the program needs to begin, I would say, at least by Q2 would be the goal of at least by Q2 of next year. As I shared, it could be, you know, a lengthy process to even get an agreement with the city once the awards are announced. And so, you know, some programs might be able to start in Q1 if we can get that moving, but Q2 would certainly be the goal. I think we wouldn't really want to go too much beyond Q2 of next year because we want to see that the programs are starting.
And then part 3 of this question, do financial statements need to be prepared by an outside accounting firm, or can they be internally prepared using bank statements? Additionally, are you looking for all 3 statements, IS, BS, and CF?
Income, that means income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's a great question. I think if you are a nonprofit or a for-profit with a board, you know, we're looking for kind of the, you know, the statements that you're sharing with your board members on a regular basis, your most recent ones.
Yep. And again, I think, you know, audited financials are not a hard requirement. If you have them, you know, those would be helpful to see. But yeah, I think Courtney's answer is the right one.
Great. And then I see we have a link for the application. Thank you, Andrew, for putting that in there. Okay, let's see. Will we have access to the evaluation results?
That's a good question. As of right now, I think the plan is to share the evaluation results with the awardees, you know, the organizations that we end up partnering with. You know, if it makes sense to publish the evaluation, you know, to the wider public, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. And also, you know, it will be a public record, so anyone can request it.
Great. Let's see. For financial education programs for home ownership, if the participant lives in Orleans now and purchases in Jefferson, will that client be allowed to participate? I believe that question is note that these are restricted to Orleans, but
I think that's a good question. I mean, you wouldn't really
technicality.
know.
Yeah, right.
So I think in that case, if they're an Orleans resident now and they're going through a home ownership program, I think you could count them.
Yep, I think that's right. I think, you know, these are, you know, City of New Orleans ARPA funds. And so I think we'll, you know, just elaborating on what Courtney and Andrew just shared, I think, you know, if the focus or the intended audience of the program, the clientele, the, you know, citizens, residents, businesses, whatever it might be, if the focus is on Orleans, has an Orleans sort of basis or focus, I think that's the lens that we're approaching this from. Certainly, if this has a multi-parish or regional impact, that's, you know, we know that economies and you know, cities operate at a regional level, and so that I don't think that's the end of the world, and it won't prohibit you all from participating. I think that, you know, if individuals in the programs are primarily from other parishes, I think we would want to understand how that would fit into the larger goals, and it might be the case that some elements of a program that are focused on other parishes won't be eligible.
Let's see. Can funds be used for real estate purchases or to make capital improvements that are directly tied to creating opportunities for community ownership?
That's a really good question. I believe that's People's Housing Plus. It's a really interesting question. I think we might have to get back to you on that. The ARPA program does allow for capital investments within certain program guidelines. And I think we can get you all some more information that, writ large as an applicant pool, some more information so that you have a better understanding about how that has to fit into the larger program proposal. So let us get back to you on that. But I think the answer is going to be yes, given the size of the funding pool that we have, and the thresholds that ARPA requirements kind of set forth. But it's a good question. Let us get back to you.
Right. Could you offer more detail about what you intended to describe asset building projects?
So home ownership is a great example of asset building. I think also just increasing savings accounts, potentially for entrepreneurs. Asset building could be things like owning their own business.
Great. So the essays require evidence/research. Is a certain citation format preferred?
No, we're not researchers here, so just, maybe links or something we can find easily.
So let's see, another question, is cost reimbursement in the city's usual fashion? And then there's a comment responding to that. This is a good question. In addition to this, are funds dispersed in a lump sum, or are they dispersed based on submitting periodic reimbursements?
Let me see if Andrew Sincy, who's our project management from the CEO's office, wants to share anything on this.
So in this case, I believe that they will be lump sum, but should you not spend all of it, we would get that money back.
That's helpful. Thank you, Andrew.
Very helpful. And I'll say too, and Courtney and Andrew, both Andrews and Tracy can kick me under the virtual table here if I'm wrong, but each of the awardees, there will be a separate contract negotiation. And so I think within parameters, there will be some flexibility for fund disbursement, based on the needs of the awarded programs.
That is correct.
Yeah, if it needs to, deviate from, I think how we're currently thinking about it. Great. Thanks for confirming, Andrew.
Thank you. All right, let's see. Will we need to verify residence of all participants annually or over the multi-year grant period?
I think that's another example where it really depends on your program. If you, for example, are working with a cohort of individuals or business owners, for 6 months, then your program is going to be different than somebody who's engaging individuals, for a shorter or longer term. There may be people who are engaging individuals, for like a one-time event. So that would be very different. So I think that's a case where, as Jeff just mentioned, we would work that out during our negotiations for our formal agreement between the city and your organization.
Great. So let's see. Can funds be used? Next question is, can funds be used for real estate purchases or to make capital improvements that are directly tied to creating opportunities for community ownership?
So I think that's similar to the other question where we're going to have to get back to you. So I think that was Colin sharing his comment.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
We will do that.
Might have. Yes, we definitely will. And I see a question here. Can you or will we have access to this presentation, including the Q&A, for reference? So I believe the answer to that is yes. And that's why we wanted to make sure to, to record this in its entirety, that we can make this, shareable along with the PowerPoint itself, for folks that maybe perhaps weren't able to join today, and then also for future reference.
Yep.
We'll be doing a lot of follow-up on this. So
That's exactly right. So on the same website where we have the NOFA, we will include the slides, we'll include this recording. And we've also, Andrew shared kind of the questions that we've received already. We'll take notes on the questions that were asked, and we'll put those in a Word document and upload that to our website as well. So I think that's all the questions.
yeah.
Thanks everybody so much for your interest. We're truly excited about receiving your proposals and supporting you. And, due to fairness, as I mentioned, we were trying to answer the majority of questions during this session. If something comes up that we didn't, touch on here and you want to send it to us, you can. What we will do is respond via that kind of FAQ page that I just mentioned. We're gonna draft a Word document and we'll just add on to that and upload it onto our website so that everyone has access to the same answers. We want to keep things fair and transparent. I think with that, Jeff, any closing words?
I think those were perfect. We can end on that, and just hopefully you can share this team's excitement for seeing all of y'all's best thinking, and we're certainly here to support as you all work on your applications.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thanks all.